Hi, I'm Dr. Don Deems. I want to first say from the bottom of my heart a great thanks and show of gratitude to Dr. Bill Waltham and Baylor College of Dentistry, my alma mater, for having me here today to present a program which is very near and dear to my heart, and that's called the Healthy Dental Workplace. You might kind of wonder what that is. So I'm going to go through that. Just a slight background about this. As a practicing dentist, I was unaware of kind of the fact that this was a lens at which to look at my practice. In 2003, I was nominated for a state award, something that sounded really bizarre, called the Psychologically Healthy Workplace Award, and I was like, what the heck is that? We ended up winning the state award, my practice, and this was not just with dentists, it was with all kinds of businesses from all over the state. And then they nominated me for the national award the next year, which I won, which was amazing. But it was a very humbling experience for me, because it helped me understand the importance of looking at my practice from a healthy workplace standard. So I'm going to help you understand what are the things that I need to be looking at in terms of my practice being healthy. Because we know when we're in an unhealthy office or business, and we know when we're in a healthy one. Okay, so I'm going to go through some of that with you today so that you have some understanding of what you should be looking at with your practice, and that it's not something you look at every single day, but making it a conscious effort to do that, okay? So there are some things that our colleagues will say, okay? You're going to hear them when you're in practice if you're not already, and it's a lot of frustration about things. So here's some of the things that they say. I call them the dirty little secrets that nobody wants to talk about because they don't want you to know that they're struggling, okay? One of the things that they say is, I'm tired of all the gossiping going on. It seems that someone is always upset about something. I'd rather come to work with earmuffs and a bag over my head. Oh my gosh, that's horrible. What about this? Why can't all these people do anything right? It seems I have to do everything myself if it's going to get done. Ooh, how about this one? I just don't understand why my staff can't work together. We lose so much productivity because of that. Well, what about this one? Believe it or not, this is a true one. I've had 42 new employees in 1 year. I just don't understand why there's this turf war and somebody ends up quitting. Oh my gosh, how horrible is that? How about this one? I don't know what they're doing. Things are a mess. I do good dentistry, but I don't know what to do about the staff. Maybe I just need to start over. I actually know a dentist who just fired his whole entire staff one time. He got so sick of it. I don't suggest that. Okay, so these are some of the costs that I'm about to tell you of having an unhealthy workplace. And they're both tangible costs, which means, like, for example, money, and intangible, which have to do with feelings of satisfaction and fulfillment and peace and all those sorts of things, okay? So, just so that you know, Alexis Herman, who was the former U.S. Secretary of Labor, said, this is not pie in the sky. This is about the bottom line. Building psychologically healthy workplaces isn't just the right thing to do, it's also the smart thing to do. Okay, so, this is somebody who knows what they're talking about. And so hopefully that's got your attention, but I want to get your attention even more. Okay, I really want you to see what we're talking about. So I'm going to go through some of these costs, okay? And it might really shock you on what these costs are. So the American Institute of Stress reports that workplace stress causes 1 million U.S. employees to miss work each day. Another one is that the American Psychological Association reports that 2/3 of all workers say work has a significant impact on their stress level. 1/4 say they have called in sick or taken a mental health day as a result of work-related stress. I know doctors who will have extra employees in their practice because somebody will call in sick. Are they sick? No, they're not sick. I mean, sometimes they are, but if they come back the next day and they look like they were never sick, I guarantee you it was a mental stress day. So just remember that. So here's some other costs. I mean, this ought to be getting your attention. The American Institute of Stress study showed workplace stress costs the U.S. industry $300 billion annually. For you, broken it down, that means $7,500 per worker in terms of absenteeism, turnover, diminished productivity, and direct medical, legal, and insurance fees. So if you have 5 employees and you have an unhealthy workplace, it's going to cost you tangibly over $35,000 a year at least in bottom line cost, okay? The Journal of Occupational and Environmental Medicine reported healthcare expenditures are nearly 50% greater for workers who report high levels of stress. Over the years, I've had employees who have come from other practices and they just couldn't take it. They just could not take the stress, okay? Well, that's going to cost that practice a lot of money because they have to replace the person. The National Research Council reported that lack of social support from supervisors, that would be you, in regard to family issues is now highly correlated with employee depression, low levels of organizational commitment, and the number of physical complaints filed. All right? And family support, okay? The American Psychologist Journal reported workers who are absent to deal with family issues can lead to decreased productivity. Preoccupation with child care problems can cause decreased concentration at work, and trouble with scheduling child care often causes lateness. Okay? Well, is there anything else? Well, sure there is. NIOSH reports that 11 million people report health-endangering levels of mental stress while at work. And you may think this isn't true for dental practice, but it is, including excessive workload, lack of job or career security, and poor interpersonal relationships in the work environment. The Canadian Psychology Journal reports that having mental health problems in the workplace results in decreased job involvement, satisfaction and performance, and increased turnover and absenteeism. Are you seeing a pattern? A study in the American Psychologist reports that worker stress is one of the major reasons for the U.S. being ranked 5th in productivity per worker despite being the world's most technologically advanced nation. American employees used about 8.8 million sick days last year due to untreated or mistreated depression, according to an article by the National Committee for Quality Assurance. 8.8 million sick days, okay, due to depression. And depression is getting more and more rampant. A University of Chicago study discovered that more than 30% of workers say they are always or often under stress at work, and 1/4 say there are often not enough coworkers to get the job done. Okay, businesses are trying to force people to get things done with not enough staff members. Estimates of employee turnover, including lost productivity and new employee recruiting and training, range from $10,000 to $40,000 per staff member depending on their position. And you might think, no way. I will tell you it's closer to the bigger number because of the time spent for you, for hiring, interviewing, training, the lost productivity from all that, as well as having to let them go and then starting the process all over again. It's very, very expensive. Okay? It's very expensive. And conversely, the Harvard Business Review estimates a 5% increase in employee retention can result in a 10% decrease in costs with productivity gains of 25 to 65%. So you do want to retain employees, and there are reasons to not retain employees, but by and large you do, okay? And you have some ways of dealing with that. So, in short, It's these things. It's increased turnover, increased stress, lower productivity, decreased job performance, increased absenteeism, low levels of commitment, and decreased enjoyment and satisfaction for the doctor. All right? So, what can we do about this? What can we do? And that's what we're going to focus on today. Hopefully this has gotten your attention. All right? So, I'm going to first give you what are called the 7 components of a healthy dental workplace. All right? So, let's go through what those are, and then I'll go through in a little bit more detail about what they are. All right, so the first one is employee involvement and recognition. Okay? The very top. The next one is work-life balance. The next one, practice management, something that we hear a lot. Personal well-being is a very important topic. Patient care, health and safety, and employee growth and development. Now your job, the thing that you want, your goal is to be right in the dead center, to have a very healthy workplace where there is a balance of all of this going on. It may sound like a lot, it's actually not. And it doesn't cost a lot of money at all to do the things that I'm about to talk about, okay? So let's define a little bit more what each of these actually are, because there needs to be some definitions here. So employee involvement and recognition. This is number 1 because in my book it is also number 1. So what does it involve? It involves efforts to increase employee involvement. Okay, getting people involved in in what they do in your practice and having them allow them some say is super important. In fact, it's one of the top 5 reasons that people work. And by the way, money is not in the top 5 reasons people work. Interesting, huh? Yes, we all need money. You and I need money to work, right? But in terms of, if you really get down to why does somebody stay in one particular job, one particular practice, etc., it's not about the money. The people that choose the money path, an employee or a dentist, in my experience, end up very dissatisfied. So by doing this, it empowers workers. It gives them a sense of feeling like they're a part of the team, they're a part of the practice. It involves them in the decision making. I mean, asking somebody their ideas and their opinions about, some decisions. I mean, there are going to be decisions that you make that only you can make, but when possible, ask for their opinions, okay? I mean, it makes them feel like $1 million. This isn't manipulation, this is just reality, okay? This is about keeping people in your practice, right? Another thing is that it gives them increased job autonomy, okay? What I mean by job autonomy, it means like they don't feel like they're just somebody doing something, but they actually are important, that the role that they have in your practice is an important role, and that the team and you depend on them, okay? The team and you depend on them. The other thing about employee involvement and recognition, when we look at recognition, and boy, I can't say enough about this. I say probably thank you 50 to 100 times a day to my staff, for example, my team. How do you do that? You can just reward them individually. You can just go to them and say, Lisa, I really appreciate the job that you're doing. I mean, I just want to tell you how you handled that patient was just beautiful. I mean, boy, Lisa is going to beam, and it means a lot. People appreciate that, okay? They really do. Another thing is that, acknowledging them, recognizing them collectively as a team is very important. In front of the rest of the team is very important too, right? And always do this honestly, with integrity. Don't fake it, okay? If you don't have something good to say, don't say it. If you need to correct somebody or work with somebody on something, do it in private, please, okay? But recognizing them for something that they've done in front of their peers is super important. Now, the second one, employee growth and development. This is a huge topic, also very important to me. Opportunities for growth and development include, expanding their knowledge, skills, and abilities. Without spending a lot of time with this, I would say to you that you always want to work with your employees to help them develop themselves to their highest ability. Okay? Ask them, what is it that you would like more information about? Send them to a course. There's tons of things online these days and resources that you can do for them. Support them in every way possible in doing that. If they're a little bit resistant about that, then say, hey, here's what I'd like for you to do. Are you willing to do this? Okay? Another thing about this employee growth and development is that that you want them to apply these competencies that they have gained in these new situations, all right? So it gives them a chance to practice that and give them some feedback, okay? And help them feel good about the progress that they're making. That's really, really critical. So you're always looking for that growth and development factor. Health and safety is one that sometimes we may take for granted, but it is important. And it's really not just things about, HIPAA and the CDC and state and federal regulations. It's about creating a safe and healthy workplace. If people feel that they are in a dangerous work environment, such as instruments not being clean and sterile, they feel like they might catch something, all right? So that's just really important, because when people do that, they know that you're doing everything that you can to help them. So we look at the physical, we also look at the mental health of it, all right? So if they're having some issues, if you notice that they seem to be down or something like that, sit down and bring them in your office and say, hey, I noticed that you've been a little bit down. Is there anything that you'd like to talk about? Okay? Sometimes, referring them to an appropriate person might be something that you want to suggest to them. Okay? People are very sensitive about, the emotional or mental parts. And remember, you are not a therapist, psychologist, psychiatrist, so please don't act like one, okay? But just listen, and sometimes just listening to that will help them a lot. You want to also encourage healthy lifestyle and behavior choices, right? This means the kinds of foods. For example, this may sound a little silly, but it's natural in a dental practice for people to want maybe fast food or something like that, because they have busy lives. Most of the people that are working for you will be women. They may have children or families, and it's very difficult for them sometimes to be organized in such a way that they can have healthy food choices at the office, because it does take some planning and preparation. If you will make that effort, and if they see you eating healthy vegetables and healthy proteins, that is going to do a lot for them, okay? So I don't need to talk to you about what happens when you have high carbohydrate diets. Boy, the energy and emotional levels go up and down, and they go through the coffee like crazy. So it's not good, but health and safety is important, and it does include those sorts of things. Patient care is another way of looking at a healthy workplace, all right? So an emphasis is given to providing quality, updated dental care. Employees want to feel like we are doing the best that we can do. We are providing the very best that's out there, and I understand why the doctor is choosing what they do. It's not about buying the latest gadget, because you are going to be inundated with people wanting to sell you technology. That's not what this is about. What this is about is always doing the right thing for the patient and providing good care. If they see that you really don't care, or you make some offhanded comments maybe after the patient is gone, that doesn't make them feel so good about working in your office, okay? And that leads to increased turnover, all right? Developing relationships with those who choose our care. You'll see many programs in this series that they have to do with relationships, and that patient care, a hallmark of that is developing the relationship with the patient. And so that's very critical in terms of a healthy workplace. All right, it's knowing who you're working with. You know, people are not typodonts, and they are not a 3-unit bridge, maybe like when you were in dental school and you had certain requirements that you had to fulfill. People are not like that, okay, in quote unquote real life. All right, so remember that. Another thing is that treating patients with dignity and respect. You are a role model, like it or not, and they are watching every single move that you make. I can't emphasize that enough. If you show disrespect for a patient, they are going to follow suit because they think it's okay. And it bothers people. And it's a very unhealthy thing to do. Another part of this is being able to communicate fully and expertly in all situations. All right, so dentistry is one of those professions that involves a lifelong commitment to learning, okay, both technically and the non-technical aspects of dentistry. So your ability to communicate with patients expertly and fully in situations is good. Your staff knows when you're trying to pull the wool over somebody's eyes or you're not telling them the complete truth. That creates a very unhealthy workspace. There is no respect for the doctor. So don't be one of those doctors, please. Okay. Moving to personal well-being. This is an area that is really critical because you're in this for the long haul. You are like $1 million athlete, okay? You are $1 million athlete. Get that in your head. The problem is, or the difference I'd say is, either way you want to look at it, is that you're not like that $1 million athlete that you watch on TV. He's only on stage or she's only on stage for a couple hours, maybe once or twice a week. You're on stage 8 hours a day during the work week, and that's hard. It takes its toll physically, emotionally, spiritually on you. And to combat that, you've really got to develop some good habits and skills in terms of taking care of yourself. So again, your staff is watching you. So learn how to take care of yourself emotionally and spiritually, physically, intellectually, financially. Okay, you've got to do that because if you're not taking care of yourself, how can you take care of the people who come to you for care? Right? If you're not taking care of yourself, how can you possibly take good care of the people coming to you? So, personal well-being is very important, and you taking an interest in the personal well-being of your team is also very important. Practice management is something that, oh my gosh, every journal you open, you're going to read all kinds of stuff about practice management, right? So basically what we talk about with practice management is that the practice is organized in a manner that's consistent with financial and accounting protocols to ensure accurate reporting. I mean, there's nothing, well, there are things more stressful, but it's a very stressful thing for your staff to wonder, is the practice solvent? You know, are we doing the right things, or is the IRS going to show up, or what's going to happen, right? So we've got to have good protocols for that. There is comprehensive business and liability policies. Letting your team know that there is a disability policy that will pay for the practice overhead should something happen to you, where you're going to be out for several weeks or several months. That they won't lose their job. That you'll be able to continue paying them. That's huge, and that's something that many doctors scrimp on. And I would suggest to you that is a very good thing to have for your practice. Okay, because you don't want to lose those people. And they can do a lot for you while you're gone. So keep that in mind. You also want to, in terms of practice management, and we see this an awful lot, but it is important, is monitoring of the practice's activities, okay? Everything from new clients and treatment diagnosed and thus and so forth. I mean, there are so many things to monitor, and that's not within the scope of today's thing, but consultants can help you do that. Other courses, you can read books. There's all kinds of things out there which can tell you what are things that are important to monitor and how do you use that piece of information. The safekeeping of all records is not just important because of HIPAA, but it's important for other reasons too. If information gets out, for example, from your practice, there can be liability issues that will cause problems. If you make a habit of talking about a patient, you know, when the patients aren't in the office in negative ways, disclosing certain information, people might let it slip out when they're in a restaurant, and somebody who might know that person overhears it, right? And it can be problematic. So those records have to do not just with what you have to do for HIPAA, but also how they're handled in the office, and what about the janitorial staff which may come in. You can't have that stuff just laying around, so there's got to be protocols and procedures for handling all of that. Certainly some of the basics are office policy manual, employment agreements, and personnel files. Believe it or not, many practices don't even have an office policy manual. The American Dental Association and many other people have office policy manuals which you can use as templates to define yours. As a side note, have a labor attorney look at that for you and make sure that you're following all of your state and federal guidelines to that too. It's really a hallmark of your practice to have something like that. It also creates a healthy practice because it's basically a set of rules that we're all agreeing to abide by, all right? So don't forget about these important things. Written job descriptions many times are lost to a doctor. They just don't want to take the time to do that. You don't have to do it that way, okay? So your staff can do that. When you're starting out, you may have to provide that. Again, there's software and other resources to be able to get that. And you can do that, okay? But having that is super critical, all right? It provides that sense of that we all know what we're supposed to be doing. That's a healthy way to be. And I could just go on for many, many, many more pages, which I won't, okay? Because if one thing, you're going to get a ton of practice management exposure as you begin practice. But I hope that you're seeing, if it's not self-evident, that there is a lot more to a healthy workplace than just practice management, okay? Remember that. All right, the next one is about work-life balance. Work-life balance is, basically finding this balance between what we do at the office and what we do outside the office, right? Finding that balance is really difficult. One of the things I want you to kind of envision in your mind is in a healthy workplace, imagine these three components. Imagine performance, imagine celebration, and imagine discovery, and it's a triangle. And I want you to imagine that there's a point at which this triangle balances on, okay? Most businesses, including dental practices, focus on productivity, okay? Productivity, just work, harder, harder, harder. And what I'm saying to you is that that's just one part of a three-pronged approach. The other approach, celebration, needs, believe it or not, as much emphasis as does the productivity, as well as, discovery, which is personal growth and development, okay? So remember that this work-life balance is super critical, and you can go a long way as the leader of the practice, as the CEO, about creating this balance, all right? Now, you can't help what they're going to do at home, all right? But what you can do something about is what happens in the office while they're there. So we want to have policies that consider personal and extended family needs. More and more people now, with people living a lot longer, they have maybe their parents moving back in with them, or they have responsibilities of taking their parents to doctor's appointments and things like that. Somehow developing a protocol and a policy that will pay attention to that is common sense, is going to be really important. And address it before it ever comes up. Address it before it ever comes up. You know, part of the frustration is that, well, Susie got to take her mom to see the doctor, but you're not going to let me go, and my dad really has to go see the cardiologist. Okay, you don't want to get into that. You know, you want to have protocols set up in advance for that. We also want to support and encourage staff members' family unit and emotional health, okay? Obviously, you know, again, just to reiterate this, you're not a therapist, a psychologist, or a psychiatrist. And what happens in their family isn't important, but you can say something about that and support that, okay? So if there's a family, something, you know, there's an anniversary or a celebration of some sort, a child who graduates from a school somewhere or something like that, you know, mention it, say something about it, okay? It's very important that they feel from you, the leader, that it's important that, that they have a healthy family environment, okay? And it doesn't really need to go much further than that, they just need to really feel that. All right, so what are a few examples of some of these things that I've been talking about now that I've covered some of these? I mentioned praising staff members at team meetings. I cannot overemphasize that enough. Don't go out of the way. You know, don't gush over something, okay? Just say it with sincerity and kindness, and just watch that employee being, okay? You know, sometimes there can be problems when you have an employee who's really underperforming that you don't have any reason to praise them, okay? That can be problematic. Look for some way to do that, okay? Look for some way. They may have come from an environment where they never received praise. I certainly had an employee like that, and one day when I was talking to her in private, she started crying, and she said to me, she goes, you know, my parents have never given me a compliment. As hard as that may sound to believe, it's true, okay? And so it really helped me understand where she was coming from. So even the slightest amount of praise just meant the world to her, okay? And so I made sure, you know, to praise her for even some of the littlest things, okay? And that employee was a dedicated employee for well over 13 years. Left practice for personal things, but besides that, I mean, she was wonderful, okay? Another thing is listening to and soliciting feedback on important decisions. Man, that is powerful, okay? Getting them involved. That doesn't mean you have to do what they say or suggest. But asking and inquiring about that is very important to them, feeling that they're involved in the operation of the practice and the success of the practice, or the failure of the practice, okay, whichever. Another one is having regular growth conference. And you say, what in the heck is a growth conference? Well, a growth conference is something that I do with an employee instead of a performance evaluation. Everybody's heard of performance evaluations, I believe. Performance evaluations are kind of one of these things where we grade employees on how they're doing. I want to give you a little hint. People hate that. Think about yourself. If you're going to be graded, do you like that? I mean, would you really like, you know, being told about all these things that you're doing, and if you're not doing them right, or you know, or good enough? It's not a feel-good situation. If they're not doing something that they should be doing, and that they know that they should do, just address it, okay? Don't wait 6 months down the road and then beat them up about it. Go ahead and address it immediately. Now, A growth conference, on the other hand, is where you sit down at least once a year. I prefer twice a year, and you outline an action plan that's specific for that employee that's going to grow and develop them as a professional in your practice. And if it happens to have some personal growth in it, that's great too, okay? That's great too, because you can't separate the two. They go together. They're intertwined, okay? Now, another example would be just making sure that you always update your office policy manual. My experience in working with doctors, sometimes they say, do you have an office policy manual? And they say, I think I do, and they're sifting through things. The last time it was looked at was 1980, okay? That's not too good. Things change. And so it's important that you look through that at least once a year. And if there are some things that need to be changed, make it a part of the policy. Make sure everybody knows what that is, all right? Another thing is, and this is super important, but it's purchasing and using ergonomic equipment. If your assistant is having the stool is very uncomfortable to her, it's going to give her back, neck, shoulder problems, etc. She's going to miss work, okay? I know that dental stools cost a lot of money, but find one that will work. You know, work with dental supply people, for example. They're also specialists in dental ergonomics who can guide you into, you know, proper equipment. Because believe it or not, dental supply companies aren't out there thinking about ergonomics necessarily. They don't have any experience. They're just designing equipment. Some do, okay? And you might want to take a look at that, but because again, you're in this for the long haul, and you've got to take care of your body. So ergonomics is hugely, hugely important. Now, another example is participating in continuing education. Of course, in most states, I believe, continuing education is required of the doctor. It probably is required of the hygienist, but it's not always required of anybody else. But that doesn't mean that, that their participation isn't just as important. And again, you don't have to put your team together and travel all across the country to go to a program. You can do things online. There's all kinds of programs. You can buy DVDs. You can just buy a book for everybody and lead discussions around that. So, you know, growth. Remember that discovery part of that triangle I talked about? That's a really important thing to know. Having a wellness plan for your office. Well, what's a wellness plan? Well, a wellness plan is anything that's going to promote wellness and that they can actually get reimbursed for if they have an expense in that area. There are tax benefits to doing that, but more importantly, there's benefits of if they're healthy, they're less likely to get sick and miss work. If somebody's sick and misses work, it's costing you money. And I promise you, the cost of you providing some benefit for wellness activities far, far outweighs what's going to happen if somebody's sick for a week in your practice, okay? So don't forget that. Providing training in communication and relationship skills cannot be underestimated. A recurring theme throughout this entire series that has been put together by Dr. Bill Wattham has been about relationships. And so nobody has ever taken courses on communication and relationship skills. You may not be an expert at that. So bring in people who are. Find books that where you can learn about that. Hire a coach, a consultant, somebody who has expertise in that area to help train your team to do that. It will have huge ramifications, not just for your practice, the health of your practice, but the bottom line and for their families, okay, or their friends or people that they come in contact with, and their own satisfaction. It means a lot to them, to your team, to have that sort of commitment from you. Another point is developing personal wellness habits. If they see you chomping on fast food every day and drinking Cokes all day long, that's not setting a very good example for them, and so therefore they're going to, put themselves at a risk. Not to mention you putting yourself at risk of health problems, but being that example that they say, well, if he's doing it, I mean, why don't I just do this? And that will eventually lead to all the problems associated with that. Also, exercising, but doing that also keeps their energy level up, so that they're not just exhausted and they're just thinking, oh, I just don't want to do that today, I'm too tired. Okay, so this is really critical. Physical health is really important. Developing a flexible work schedule. I'm not saying that you should allow people to come and go as they please, but sometimes things come up. Things will come up for you. You will have parents, if they're alive, who are going to get old, hopefully, and eventually they may need your help, okay? So put yourself in their shoes if they are in situations like that. I mean, most dentists, if they're married and have a spouse, whether they're a man or a woman, usually that person is able to stay at home. Or they can afford good child care, okay? Your team members probably are not going to be in that situation. So you may have to and need to address work schedule, all right? And learn to be as flexible as you can. Also help them understand, though, that they are an employee of the practice, and that their attendance is very important too. So find that balance. And the way that you find that is by having open communication, okay? Open communication. Now, I've just given you a lot of information about healthy workplace practices, the things that you should be looking at. There is a lot of information available on where else but the internet. Look for things like that. Look for ways that you can look at your practice through this lens of being a healthy workplace. Not only will you be more profitable, you'll find greater happiness, you'll have a team that enjoys coming to work every day, who respects you, who admires you, who supports you 100%. I mean, what can be better than that, right? So my best wishes to you, and I'll see you on another program. Thanks.